I would, to start with, I would like to introduce, or shall we say, welcome the appointment of the Lieutenant General Engineer Javed Mahmood Bukhari, who is now heading the NUST University. And I'm sure with his vast experience, he's been an outstanding soldier. He's a Sword of Honor winner, and he will be directing the mission of NUST and making a very constructive contribution. So I, in fact, look forward to meeting him. May I now invite you, Dr. Ahmed Usal?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Ambassador.
The director of the NUST University will be addressing us for a few minutes, please. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm very grateful for your good words. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dr. Ahmed Oysam, President ORSAM, Ambassador Riaz Khokhar, former Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, Dr. Ishfaq Hasan Khan, Director General NIPS, eminent speakers of today's webinar, respected dignitaries and experts from Turkey and Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and hoş geldiniz.
Hoş bulduk. Sağ olun.
I'm considering myself privileged to have got this opportunity to talk to you all. And I would like to start by expressing my gratitude to the ORSAM Institute of Policy Studies for this joint webinar. I also wish to thank all the experts in Turkey and Pakistan who have taken out the time to be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, as rightly pointed out by Khokhar Sahab, the Middle East in general and the region in particular are of special significance to both Turkey and Pakistan, owing to long-standing economic, religious, and diplomatic complementarities. Indeed, what happens in the Middle East impacts the geopolitics of the surrounding region in complex and non-linear ways. We see that multiple conflicts in the region have collectively stunted its immense potential for growth and development. The traditional inability of major countries in the region to work together has also proved to be a sticking point and prevents pooling of regional strategic and developmental resources. The Middle East has not experienced the kind of regional integration that has turned the European Union and Southeast Asia into the economic powerhouses of the world. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the growth trajectory of certain countries in the region, like Iraq and Syria, has been irrevocably undermined by a combination of conflict and terrorism, and also the consequent external interventions with serious spillover in the region. It is also a disturbing reality that comprehensive inter-Islamic coordination, consultation, and cooperation is beset with serious challenges and conflicting perceptions. It is therefore natural that result-oriented multilateralism remains elusive. Despite this general absence of comprehensive regional cooperation, states have achieved economic growth, development, and modernization. However, moving from individual growth to shared prosperity and common development is a challenge that needs to be collectively tackled. I feel that the nature of coming regional challenges like conflict management and diffusion, youth bulge, volatile oil prices, climate change, and above all, the management of outside pressures and interferences can call for a collective approach in order to keep the Middle East secure and stable. In this regard, Pakistan supports any meaningful dialogue between regional constituents aimed at broadening cooperation and peaceful resolution of differences. Because a peaceful, stable, and secure Middle East means a great example next door for South Asian peace and stability. And without doubt, ladies and gentlemen, Turkey, our great brother nation, has exhibited a keen desire to follow and forward this agenda. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, let's take this opportunity to ponder these shared interests. I once again thank the experts for participating in this joint webinar. With very best wishes for all of you, we look forward to interesting, meaningful, and mutually rewarding discourse. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Focus up, please.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now, before we start the session, I would first of all welcome a lot of people who have sort of tuned into this webinar, both in Pakistan as well as in Turkey. Of course, President Omar Aslan does not need any introduction in Turkey. Oh, sorry. Sorry if I apologize. President ORSAM, Dr. Ahmed Osal does not really need any introduction in Turkey, but certainly for a lot of Pakistanis who have tuned in, I'd like to say and tell them that Dr. Ahmed Osal is a political sociologist and studied in Arab affairs and Turkish Arab relations. Apart from that, he has been in the Middle East Technical University Special Sociology Department, and he's received his master's and doctoral degree in Southern Illinois University. Previously, he was teaching at the Dampul Pinar and Marmar universities. Currently, he is teaching in Istanbul University International Department. I welcome Dr. Ahmed Osal, President of ORSAM, to deliver his remarks. And we are delighted to, and we are looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. And I also greet Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim awalan yani.
Hocam, your mic is off. Ahmet Hocam, your mic is off.
My mic, somebody close my mic, looks like. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I greet all valuable, respectable participants, especially starting with Ambassador Riyadh and also the president of the university. I am also glad to work with as ORSAM as our team. Also, we are glad to work with the brotherly, sisterly country Pakistan and also the Institute of Policy Studies. We have a very long historical ties. You know, Turks moved westward. They established Selçuklu and then Ottoman Empire. Some other Turks also moved southward all the way to the Indian subcontinent and also spread Islam and good relations. We have very strong historical ties and cultural ties together. We also have similar concerns. I normally, before the meeting, we were talking with with our friends that, very special feelings in both Turkey and Pakistan on a human level, on people's level, plus the governmental level. This is also unique. Normally you see difference when governments like something, people don't like, but it is not the case for Turkey and Pakistan and their good relations and their brotherly, sisterly relations. We have a very common concerns also, like world peace, very peaceful countries also working for their, of course, their well-being first, but also they always concern about other neighbors, like Turkey is concerned about Syria, and Pakistan is concerned about Afghanistan and Myanmar. All Palestine is a common concern. And I just to cut it short, I want to mention a couple of things, that the world today is in turmoil and we need more cooperation. After the fall of Ottoman Empire, there was a big support for the Ottoman Caliphate, for the Ottoman unity in a way, that we see a very big support from the Indian subcontinent that even, cured many of the problems, plus this aid come from Indian subcontinent and Pakistani brothers and sisters especially. Also did not let the Turks of Anatolia and the Muslims did not being colonized because of that. So it was so critical that we appreciate these strong ties. And we also realized that Ottoman Empire was more than the administrative territories that was uniting the whole Muslim ummah. And today, as I said, the world is in turmoil and we need more cooperation. After the Ottoman Empire, of course, the colonization destroyed and disrupted many of the good potentials of the Muslim countries like Pakistan and the Gulf region. And they created kind of dependencies. They always caused either terror or even like political instability, economic crisis and military coups that come after that. And all these conflicts, they pit the Muslim countries against each other. I know Pakistan has good relations with both Iran and Pakistan, Iran and Saudi Arabia. Turkey is trying to do the same, but we are more in the eye of the storm in Turkey. We are in the region. I mean, Turkey is more relevant to the conflict. So even though we don't take sides, but they push us to take some stance, but we are trying to stay away from sectarianism. We are stay away from also regional conflicts, because these regional conflicts also make us very weak. We need to be united to be strong, but these conflicts unfortunately make us weak. And especially the Gulf conflict, the Gulf siege on Qatar was meaningless, for example, and it did not help the Gulf countries. It did not help also the neighbors, also like Pakistan and Turkey. We didn't support it, even though we had good relations with Qatar more, but we didn't support this siege and conflict in the region. So we need more cooperation. We need also pay attention to what's going on. There is some kind of room for optimism that came with the Gulf normalization between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. I think things get better, and we wish that also. They start dialogue with Iran mostly. These conflicts, doesn't help anyone. They just keep us busy and weaker. So we have to work on it. And Pakistan and Turkey can contribute to this world peace, even also the Palestinian cause that is also neglected and is a sad story. And I want to mention, along with diplomatic ties are working very, very well between the two countries, but we need to improve also civil society relations, cultural relations between two countries. I always mention, like after English, to my students, I am saying Urdu is the most common language in one of the most common language in the world, is spoken more than 1 billion and understood more than 1 billion people. And as a second language, I always encourage my students to learn. And there are growing interest in public. There are, movies that's like Ertugrul and others that's also creating cultural ties. We need to do more on this one. Academic relations also. This event is one of its kind and is very important. We can improve this academic relations further with other topics. Like today we are discussing Gulf region and normalization in the Gulf region, but we can discuss, and we can also kind of establish a common understanding in all these events. And there is, I think, a hope, and there's room for this, and there is need for this. And we know there are many groups that's like Fethullah Gülen group is working like proxy group for American hegemony, and we have PKK, you have other radical groups, etc., that's destabilizing the region. We have to, depend on our own forces, not like guided forces, that also you are aware of it very well. So this is the beginning. Inshallah, we will have very constructive relations and cooperations in the future. Turkey and Pakistan and their people they always feel very, very good toward each other, and we need to strengthen that. But knowledge is the key. Knowledge is power. We have to increase the knowledge about each other. Turkey and Pakistan, I know Pakistanis are a little bit more interested than the Turkish people, but we are also trying to increase this interest. But this is also Pakistan's job, and we can help in that, to understand, to introduce or to make people know about Pakistani, history, culture, and common culture, etc. So we are, just in the beginning, and we can do more. And I appreciate the time, and again, very happy to be with you today. And inshallah, we have a fruitful discussion for Turkish and Pakistani relations, as well as its relevance to the Gulf region. Thank you very much. You.
Your directions that you have laid down for subsequent speakers about how Turkey and Pakistan can help improve the situation in the Gulf region and bring about genuine normalization, not normalization that may have been, shall we say, pressurized by certain forces from outside. I think another important aspect would be how to see that, how do we see the great power intervention in the region, particularly the United States. Russia has also been very active. And this in itself has been causing some concerns. Clearly now China is a country which is emerging very rapidly and has very strong links with Turkey and has very strong links with Pakistan. And I think they are now also making great efforts to have very strong economic relations with China. May I now invite my very dear friend, Mr. Ambassador Javed Hafiz, who has been in the Pakistan Foreign Service for many, many years, and his expertise is in the Middle East. He has served in several Arab countries, and he also now speaks on several Arab television networks. Also, he writes for the Arab News. So he's a very familiar figure, not only in Pakistan but also in the Middle East. I especially want to emphasize that he has been a very dear colleague, and during my time at the Foreign Ministry, he made outstanding contribution in our policy making. So I would like to invite Ambassador Hafiz, Javed Hafiz, to make his presentation.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Ahmed, President ORSAM, Dr. Ashfaq Hassan Khan. It is a pleasure to talk on this forum and also reach my Turk kardeşler. Now, the topic today, the subject that we're going to discuss is normalization in the Gulf as seen by Turkey and Pakistan. Before coming to the topic, I would just like to highlight what Pakistan means to the Gulf and why Gulf is important for us. Now, we've had centuries old, even much before the creation of Pakistan, commercial as well as spiritual relations with this region, which is next door. To highlight our geographic proximity, I'd like to point to the distance from the port of Gwadar to the port of Muscat. It is 208 nautical miles, which is 435 kilometers, which is about the same distance as between Islamabad and Lahore, or between Ankara and Istanbul. So we live in the same region. We send a large number of pilgrims every year to the Holy Lands. We have 5 million Pakistani workers in the Gulf. The total number of Pakistanis abroad is 8 million, and out of these, 5 million are in the Gulf. The remittances sent by these Pakistanis back home constitute 60% of the total remittances and have increased in 2020. They were in the vicinity of 20. So we received about $16 billion in 1 year from the Gulf countries alone. Having said that, Pakistan has had, as I said, the spiritual relationship is not only with Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but also with Iraq and Iran. We've had a very close defense cooperation with these countries when their armed forces were in a nascent stage. Another side field that I want to highlight is the maritime security cooperation between the two sides, because this area has huge energy resources. Maritime security is very, very important, because 20% of the world oil exports pass through the Hormuz Strait every day. Pakistan Navy has had a long tradition of cooperating and training the GCC navies. In a few days, we're going to have a big naval exercise called Aman 21, in which some of the Gulf countries, USA, Russia, China, it's an international, it's a big exercise of 45 countries. So that area is hugely important. We participate in an international coalition force called CTF 150 and CTF 151, which is against piracy and against crime on the high seas, like human smuggling, like drug smuggling. And we have done that for the last 20 years. Pakistan has commanded CTF 150 record 11 times. So we have a vested interest in the peace and stability of the Gulf, because any turmoil over there means that our workers would be losing jobs, that our friends over there would lose the momentum of development. Having said that, now I come to the topic of normalization. Now, what kind of the recent normalization to which Foreign Secretary Coker, as well as Dr. Ahmed referred, is the normalization within the GCC. Unfortunately, in 2017, four Arab countries decided to blockade Qatar. Pakistan was not too happy because, as I've said, we have always promoted reconciliation and peace in this region. We tried to reconcile openly as well as behind closed doors, and we prayed for normalization, and that normalization has recently happened. The Emir of Qatar attended the last summit held in Saudi Arabia, and those four countries are reopening their embassies in Doha, and we're happy for that. The other normalization that Foreign Secretary Coker had referred to, I don't know whether to call it normalization or abnormalization, is the new relationship between the two Gulf countries and Israel. Now, viewed from Pakistan, we think that the Arab countries should perhaps have done better had they bargained and talked to Israel collectively to get the Palestinian rights restored first, and then open the relations. And we see a lot of similarity between the Palestinian problem and the Kashmir problem. Pakistan itself has declared that it will not open diplomatic relations with Israel unless and until the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people are resolved and restored in accordance with the UN resolutions and the Arab Peace Plan. Now, I'd like to dilate briefly as to why we feel so uncomfortable whenever our friends Our neighbors next door in the Gulf and the Middle East have problems amongst themselves. Recently in Yemen, all of us know that the Pakistan Parliament decided that we will not be a party to the conflict. Why would we do that? Because our previous experiences in the Iran-Iraq war, during Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, we felt very difficult choices. During the Iran-Iraq war, both sides tried to pull Pakistan towards them. Iran said, "You help us." Iraq said, "You help us." And it was kind of a Hobson choice because two brotherly countries were fighting. So it was a very difficult situation that lasted for almost a decade. During the Kuwait invasion of Saddam Hussein, again, Pakistan suffered in the sense that thousands of our workers had to come back. The families were dislocated. And again, the demand was that Pakistan should send its forces to the area in order to vacate the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. The government was favorable, but again, there was a split in the Pakistani society. And this is the point that, again, I'd like to highlight, is that any rift in the Middle East, particularly in the Gulf, also has its ramifications in the Pakistani society because of our peculiar communal texture. In Kuwait, on the question of sending forces, the Pakistani society and the government were standing separate. In Pakistan, in the society, some people favoring it, some were against it. Those who were in the favor, they would argue that, okay, Saddam Hussein is a very brave man, he's fighting the Americans. And I remember some of the newborn boys were named Saddam Hussein in Pakistan. Those Saddam Husseins are now about 30 years old. So the idea is, what I want to highlight is that in each and every inter-Arab conflict, we have been put in a difficult situation. We have been given difficult choices. And our abiding policy is that we will not take part. We will not be party to any conflict. Now, coming to the mother of all normalizations, that is the normalization across the Gulf between Iran and the GCC countries. Now, that is again hugely important for Pakistan. Pakistan has, we tried it at the end of we're trying it even now. It is our declared policy. If you read the Parliament resolution of May 2015, April 2015, it's clearly written that we will remain neutral in order to try reconciliation later on. Now, what happens? I was thinking of a scenario in which Arabs, some GCC countries, and Iran decide to go to war. Although it's a very remote scenario, but were that to happen, it would be nightmarish for Pakistan. Again, asked to take sides. It will be nightmarish for Pakistan because the situation today is even more complicated. We are living in an era in which the concept of war has changed. It is no more a conventional war. It is a war of narratives, propaganda, sabotage, and things are much more complicated. Now, in the ultimate nightmare, if in some kind of a scenario pushed to the wall, some Arab countries decide to invite Israel to come to their help, what would happen? What would Pakistan do? What would be our choices? Again, very, very difficult. That is why we have always worked and prayed for amity, for friendship, for cooperation within the Arabs and within the Islamic world. And that is why I think we are meeting today to ponder over those ideas. I will stop there and leave, some space, some things to be discussed in Q&A. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador Javed Hafiz, for a very interesting and fascinating account of the situation, especially the emphasis that you have laid on why Gulf countries are of importance to Pakistan, and I think that's a very, very relevant point. A point that he historically did not refer to is we learned our lesson in 1956 when Pakistan, I don't know for what odd, silly reasons, we supported the British and French invasion of Suez Canal. And a lot of our Arab brothers have never forgotten that. But since then, he's absolutely right. We don't like to mess around or get involved with inter-Arab issues. We also would like to avoid getting involved with Iran-Saudi problems because that has very serious implications for Pakistan. Pakistan is a country which is, more than about 70% Sunni and maybe 30% Shia. Maybe I don't want to mention figures in the sense that can complicate it. It's a controversy in Pakistan, but that can create a lot of problems for Pakistan. So we really would like to stay away from these issues. But if, as he has very rightly emphasized, if there is any conflict in the region, it has a very negative impact on Pakistan. May I take the opportunity now to introduce our next speaker from Turkey, Professor Omar Aslan, who's a member of the Ankara Yıldırım University. He's done his doctorate in Turkey in 2010 and 16, and postgraduate studies at the London School of Economics in economics and in political science. He's a researcher in social sciences and humanities, and is an author of a number of books and articles. A very warm welcome, Professor Aslan, and we look forward to hearing from you. You obviously have a very rich background, academic background, and I'm sure you've written a lot on these issues. So we look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure first that you can all hear me. Thank you for the invitation. I think this is a very timely event and a perfect opportunity for me to share my thoughts about, well, Turkish-Pakistani relations, and then maybe in the discussion session about, well, double normalization or one normalization, and then the other abnormal normalization in the region, and my thoughts on those two events. But to begin with, maybe Turkish-Pakistani relations. I think, well, I'm sure, I have no doubt that many of us already are very familiar with, how close the relations have been. Many of us, of course, trace the origins of the relationship even before Pakistan was established. But beginning with, of course, if we start with the establishment of Pakistan, of course, as an independent, state, Well, we can, of course, we should mention that the fact that during the Cold War, both countries, Turkey and Pakistan, let's say, were members of the Western Bloc. Despite all difficulties with the West in general, of course. I mean, keeping in mind Turkey had problems with the West over Cyprus, the issues over Kashmir, the fact that many times Pakistan felt very much abandoned by its Western allies when it clashed with India in 1965, for instance. So, I mean, leaving all of those aside, of course, the relationship benefited, I think, from the fact that both countries were, let's say, I mean, ideologically, or in terms of these groupings on the world stage, we were allied with the West in general, overall again. So this really helped, and it showed in the memberships through Baghdad Pact in the first place, which, of course, later named Central Treaty Organization. And then both countries were members of RCD, established in 1964. So in terms of these memberships in regional organizations, Turkey and Pakistan were on the same side. Of course, again, if we go back to the issues of Kashmir on the Pakistan side and then Cyprus issue on Turkish side, both countries really closely supported each other, and I think that support was very much valuable. So in my, again, research on Turkey-Pakistan relations, but also in terms of Pakistan's relations with the Gulf, especially as it relates to Pakistan, many times feeling stuck between Iran and Saudi Arabia in particular. And in my interviews done with ambassadors from the Turkish side, especially, of course, but also from the Pakistani side, one, of course, always feels that Pakistan's support for Turkey on the Cyprus issue and the Turkey's support, consistent support, of course, I mean, for both sides, on the Kashmir issue have been very much appreciated till today, given the fact that on both issues, both countries felt really abandoned by their Western allies. Pretty much beginning around the same time, ironically, in 1960s, for both sides, feeling that maybe West, we are part of the West, but we are not really being supported by them when we really feel the need. So those, I mean, that kind of membership, common membership in regional organizations really helped both countries in that regard. I mean, many, I don't want to go into details about, bilateral agreements in 1954, for instance, between Turkey and Pakistan. And then many efforts that went on, for instance, one was, I think, in mid-1980s. Turkey and Pakistan really felt that, politically relations were very good, militarily also good, because again, we were members in the same organizations, but culturally and economically, I think relations were kind of lagging behind. And today, I think still is, if you compare. So this is, I think, a difficult, I mean, a kind of strange situation in which normally, political and military relations come hardest when two countries come together and establish relations. And then cultural relations are the starting point usually. But in Turkish-Pakistan relations, of course, that doesn't mean that culturally people-to-people relations are not bad. But there is much room to improve on that place, I think, on that area, on that field, when you compare it to, I think, military and political relations. Because again, one characteristic about Turkish-Pakistan relations is that whichever government is in place, there may be differences in tones, I think, but overall, the relationship does not really depend on political parties in power in government. Again, there are exceptions. I don't want to go into details. There are exceptions when, for instance, Bülent Ecevit was the prime minister in Turkey in late 1990s. Ecevit felt more like inclined to India, coming from his own background, and so on. But again, leaving aside a little bit those exceptions, the relations between Turkey and Pakistan really did not depend too much on political parties in government. So it was more like, people-to-people relations were there, but also state-to-state relations. I think that's why, even going back to the 1950s, or during the Cold War and other periods, other decades too, the relations were good at all times. Again, there may be differences in tones, but overall, the relations were very much good in that regard. Well, more, I mean, coming to recent times, again, there were sometimes, frictions, of course. For instance, I think in 1990s over Afghanistan, I think, when it came to issues related to Taliban and so on. But overall, I think what the two countries want from Afghanistan is again, in very general framework-wise, is the same: peace in Afghanistan, regional integration, more relations in terms of the people to people and cultural relations and so on. So this was again a similarity in that sense. In terms of cultural and people to people relations, I think there is much improvement in the recently. We see more and more Pakistani students here in Turkey, in universities. I think this is very much a visible development, very, very welcome development in that regard. In terms of, again, cultural interaction, Turkish TV shows are being exported and very much welcomed and liked in Pakistan. Maybe a similar development could be seen from the Pakistan's side in Turkey, because I think the Turkish TV shows, surprisingly, India has a hold in that, especially during the day, which is kind of interesting. Especially. So there may be more development in that regard, maybe from the Pakistani side. But again, military and security relationship, I think, is improving rapidly and at a perfect pace, at a perfect speed, I think, and tone. Police cooperation has been there, I think, but the military-to-military relationship has been, of course, very much good and perfect. As today, already another joint exercise is going on between the two militaries just today, or these days. So, in that aspect, I think there is, again, in terms of defense sector cooperation, things are very much on the ground. Economic relations, I think, they has the widest room to maybe improve. And so if you just look at, for instance, for the last 2 decades, in terms of economic cooperation, both countries always pledge that they want to improve that, but somehow it really has not exceeded, I think, even $1 billion. So if you go back to, for instance, 2009, 10, and even 12, there is always the pledges, mutual pledges by both countries to go and exceed $5 billion. But I think this still has not really accomplished that goal. And this is... I think there is much room there to do at least. I mean, there is a target, and it is not really satisfactory in this regard. In terms of, I think, wishes and desires, I could talk more about how, again, mid-1980s going into, I think, early 1990s, there has been even commissions established between Pakistan and Turkey to do more. Military commissions and political commissions and defense ministers coming together and so on. But in that aspect, I think, so what we need is more about, I think, economic relations to pick up. Because I think military to military wise, things are moving ahead with very much speed. Let me stop here with these general remarks, of course. If there is any question in the discussion session on both, again, Turkey-Pakistan relations, but also in terms of, discussions about normalization in the Gulf, we could go more into details about how Turkey may see things from my, of course, standpoint, and how, again, I think Pakistan, how normalization in the Gulf may relate to Pakistan. I could talk more about this. But again, general framework-wise is these are the things that I could talk about, But again, there is many more things to go into detail about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Aslan, for your presentation on Pakistan-Turkish relations. Let me tell you, in my introduction, I had emphasized that our hearts beat together. Maybe our minds also work together. But unfortunately, there are some shall we say, logistical problems that we have. For instance, trade between Pakistan and Turkey. Why can't it improve? But I think it's basically access. We have to go through the Middle East. Either from the Suez Canal or sometimes very modest trade takes place by road. And if Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey were to be linked, shall we say, with a very good train service, perhaps that could be and I know that Turkey has excellent linkages with the rest of the Muslim world in terms of communications. But now, for instance, now you are building the famous connection between Turkey and Kazakhstan, and then Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey. If we build excellent communications, the connectivity will be perfect, because what people don't realize that the Islamic world, if you look at the Islamic world, it is all actually physically configured together. Central Asian countries, Middle East, South Asia, and of course North Africa, the Arab world, we are all connected. And it's very interesting that the Muslim world is about 1.6 billion people. And only 400 of 450 million Arabs are members of the Islamic world. We need to strengthen the Islamic world. I mean, I don't want to mention some of the obstacles at the moment. There are obstacles, issues between, first of all, the issues within the Islamic world, within the Arab world, then problems about Arabs and the non-Arab Muslims. These are all issues that need to go in. But OIC was created, as you all know, for Palestine. That was the original idea. But unfortunately, OIC has not really delivered as an organization for the Muslim causes like Palestine. I mean, Palestine has suffered. In fact, in the current normalization of relations, they really, as I mentioned in my initial remarks, the Palestinians have been thrown under the bus. And, not very many Arab brothers are now really that anxious to play a role in this whole thing. And Israel has been given, shall we say, so much importance and so much access that it has actually achieved certain strategic objectives that it has been looking for a long time. We cannot ignore Iran. I had the privilege, Mr. President, of attending the RCD summit in 1976 in Ankara. It was amazing. I think Pakistan and Turkey were on the same page, but unfortunately, our Iranian brothers at that time, under the Shah had his own, ideas about his importance, his role, his friendship with the United States, and eventually, Turkey and Pakistan were right that we warned him then that you will be let down by the Americans. So I just wanted to make this a brief point. I don't know if. Okay, that's great. We look forward to now inviting Mr. Duran to come and speak.
Technology and ORSAM to organize these meetings. We need this kind of meetings too much, really. So I thanks to NIPS and ORSAM. As I say, both shukriya to both of them. Yes. As the problems in region, in Gulf region, as we know, it make problem for the Turkey and Pakistan, and we have seen what the damage of the Gulf crisis to to Islamic world also, but mostly in particular, it affected to Pakistan and Turkey. So Turkey and Pakistan should work now for the stability of the solution or the normalization of the Gulf. They can do more things, I think. Pakistan, for here, I want to focus on 5 things. What they can do, Pakistan and Turkey, for normalization or solution of Gulf. First of all, I think it is time to end the centuries-old problems of the Arab tribes, because the problems between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, when we talk with Qataris and with Saudis, they say that the problem was before 200 years, not now, or 3 years ago. So what is the problem? So we have to focus on this, and with Pakistan and Turkey, they should to solve these problems. It is one. Second is solving problem with Iran. For here, we have 2 things. One is to prevent sectarian fighting, because as we know in Gulf area, the problem between Shias and Wahhabis, Shias, or they say Sunnis, but I don't say it's Sunni. It is the problem between Shia and Wahhabis. So we have to try to solve this problem also. I think the Pakistan and Turkey can play a good role for this. The second one, safeguarding them against the fear of Iran invasion. So when you talk with Saudi Arabian or Emirates or Bahrain, everybody from the politicians, from the peoples, most of the people, they are afraid from the invasion of Iran. So when we ask, fear or not fear, not real fear, nobody will talk this, but they say there's a fear, we can see there's a fear of Iran. So Turkey and Iran, they can solve this problem also. So we have to focus on this side also. It is very, very important. When I talk with some Bahraini or Kuwait also politicians, they say Iran will one day invite or land. Is it true or not? So we have to try to talk on this thing, I think. The third problem is Turkey, Pakistan can play and security side, Basra or Persian Gulf or Red Sea security. As we know, the biggest part of the world trade revolves here in this 2 area, Persian Gulf or Basra Gulf. With Turkey we say Basra Gulf and Red Sea security. It is very important. So I think Turkey and Pakistan by its army can help the Gulf countries for the security of these 2 seas. The fourth is the security of holy places. I think Pakistan and Turkey can have good rule for the security of holy lands also. It must support against the Western struggle in these places. And then lastly, I think Pakistan and Turkey should be a member of the Gulf Cooperation Council. So by this, when they be member of the council, maybe they can help them solve most of the security things. This is things I want to focus on them, but there are many things to talk. But on the phone, really, I can hear what I am going to talking, what I am talking, and what I am listening. Problem. So I will leave here. Thanks for everybody.
I would now like to invite Lieutenant General Lodhi from Pakistan to make a few comments on what you have heard so far. And of course, with your own vast experience, not only as a soldier, but as an analyst and as a commentator, and of course, as a minister, you can make a very significant contribution to this debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Am I audible?
Oh, very, very good.
Yes. Thank you very much. So first of all, I think all credit to Nest for arranging such an important webinar, and then trying to bring these two brotherly countries together, also keeping in mind the situation in the Gulf. I only have to make one or 2 points. One is about the relationship between Turkey and Pakistan. People keep on assigning various reasons that why these two countries are very dear to each other, why the people-to-people affinities there. They give ethnic reasons, they give reasons of Khilafat movement and other things. But in my opinion, there is something special about these two peoples. I don't know. You must have heard about love at first sight. You must have heard about love without any reason. So I think this affinity between the Turks and Pakistanis, but we may not be understanding that what future has, what the nature has planned as far as our future is concerned. I leave it here. We must understand one thing, and I'm sure that we all understand that, but probably we are a bit shy of discussing it. I will put before all the participants that when we talk of normalcy in a region or a relationship between various countries, we need to keep in mind that which are the powers that are controlling the world, controlling the politics, controlling the economy, controlling the relationship, and pursuing their own interests. That is very important to understand. Powers keep on talking about peace, their desire of peace in the region, peace in the Gulf, peace in South Asia, peace elsewhere. But let us think for a moment that if there is peace all along the globe, how will they sell their arms? And how will they control the regimes, which they have to, because to further their own interests? So we need to keep that thing in mind. And they have, the powers, the world power, they do not only have political power and military power and economic power. The most cutting edge power of today is their power to manage the perceptions of the people. And that is the biggest thing that we have to defend ourselves against. They keep, working on the minds of people of the region or on the minds of the leadership, where they try to create apprehensions against each other. And we also know that, the term false flag operations, doing something, A doing something against B, and actually then the C is the actual proponent, and such like things. I don't have to go into details. So unless and until we can also calculate the interest of the big powers in the region, whether they would like this Middle East to be a peaceful region, why would they like it? Whether they would like Turkey and Pakistan and other countries to get closer, why would they like it? And within this whole cobweb, we have to make a space for ourselves. I think these were the only 2 points which I wanted to make. One, that the affinity between Turkey and Pakistan is natural and beyond a normal understanding. And secondly, that we need to understand that which other powers are operating to create misperceptions, apprehensions. We got to sit down and think of all these things, and then probably we'll be able to pave our way in future. Thank you very much.
Now invite Mr. Omar, who's a guest, and he works with a British think tank called RUSI, and is also well known to, has been in touch with ORSAM, I think, in terms of his research work, etc. You're invited to say whatever you wish to. We will look forward to hearing you.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me rightly? Is my voice audible?
Both in Turkey and here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think it's a good discussion and a good starter, and we haven't seen such events happening before. So intelligentsia and public servants on both sides need to understand both countries much more, and also our respective political paradigms, our respective political interests and limitations need to be also contextualized for audiences on both sides, and that's a problem which I think often cloud the judgments on both sides of both countries' elites. And I think we should be a bit realistic in terms of how Pakistan and Turkey's engagement with Gulf, how it is proceeding and how it can go on. We need to understand that right now the Gulf, there has been a normalization, but still the divide has not been completely eradicated within the Gulf region, and clearly Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, alongside Egypt, are on one side. Qatar had been on the other side, while Kuwait and Oman tried to play a balancing act. And we have to keep this in mind as well, that Pakistan came under strong pressure from Saudi Arabia when it wanted to join the Kuala Lumpur summit in Malaysia, which was jointly initiated by Malaysia, Turkey, and Pakistan. And then Pakistan had to move out of that summit. And the other thing is, of course, Pakistan's massive economic dependence upon the Gulf, and particularly upon Saudi Arabia. And the third thing is that, which is a very critical factor, and I don't see how much it is being appreciated within Pakistani political and security circles, that Pakistan's traditional security bonds with Saudi Arabia, or you can say security leverage vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia, is becoming weaker and weaker by every passing day. So in future, it would be difficult for Pakistan to use that particular factor to balance out its ties with Saudi Arabia, as has been evident in the past, in the last episode, where Pakistan and Saudi ties got a bit got into a rough patch. On the Turkey issue, I think Pakistan and Turkey, it's a very interesting relationship where both countries, they don't really have any strategic clash of their own. Pakistan supports Turkey's stance on Cyprus, and generally within Turkey's broader neighborhood, Pakistan supports its stance. And Turkey has been backing Pakistan's political interests within its own region, although we can say that in Turkey, ideologically, governments have been a bit different. The past governments, whenever there was lesser emphasis on Islamic bonds, or you can say Muslim Brotherhood bonding, we saw a relatively lack of political interest from some of the Turkish governments. But definitely under the current government, building stronger ties with Pakistan has been a recurring theme, and it has been very interesting that through different governments in Pakistan, the bonds with Turkey and the Turkish state have only been strengthened. As Dr. Omar was saying before, that the military-to-military engagement has been excellent, but we also need to enhance political and economic engagement, while also understanding the limitations and political obligations of both states. So right now we know that relationship of Turkey and Saudi Arabia is not really good, and Turkey, in some months ago, there was an unofficial Saudi boycott of Turkish goods happening as well. So this thing makes Pakistan, or puts Pakistan in a difficult spot if it has to, or if it is forced to choose between different Muslim states. So what can be done, I think, is that Pakistan and Turkey they move on with this strengthening of their bilateral relationship, of course, stronger relationship in the security domain helps in furthering the relationship in other domains, particularly the economic domain, the technology domain. And I think that's where it should be heading on. And thanks to the import of Turkish entertainment shows and Turkish media productions, Pakistanis are also now understanding the Turkish culture and the diversity within Turkey even more. I think that was a point which was lacking before, and gradually this will help strengthen the ties even further. But I think what both countries need to do is just to focus on their bilateral relationship and to. I mean, Pakistan is a very weak and economically a country which is economically dependent on Gulf, so we cannot actually force the Gulf countries to orient their foreign policies in any particular way. And this is, I think, our biggest limitation. Until that Turkey is relatively stronger than Pakistan in this regard, and Turkey is also in the region. So Turkey has much bigger cards and some very stronger cards, which Pakistan definitely lacks. And the biggest shortcoming on Pakistan's point is the huge number of Pakistani diaspora within Gulf states, which sends very important remittances to Pakistan, which binds Pakistan even further. So in a nutshell, the normalization between Qatar and Saudi Arabia, some people say it's a cold normalization, some say let's see, or this fissure will heal over time. But in any case, it's a welcome event for both Pakistan and Turkey. And eventually, I think as America puts more emphasis on countering or encircling China and backs out of the Middle East and particularly the countries in the Gulf region, they would also acknowledge that maybe they need to have stronger interaction and engagement with other regional powers and other powers that have become more prominent on the global stage and not simply on a US determined and US dominant political and hegemonic order for the region. And I hope there are more such events between the two sides, between Pakistan and Turkey, and we both sides understand each other's political perspective and each other's political objectives within the Middle East, within South Asia, and within generally in the broader international system more and more. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Omar, for your very constructive contribution. I think you made some very valid points about Pakistan-Turkey relations, and of course, the desire is very much there. And as I mentioned in my remarks, that there are some serious logistical issues. Trading through Iran is not easy. That's really a real link, road link and train link is very, very, it's still not, it's not the way it should be. I think just imagine if we had fast trains between Pakistan and Turkey, perhaps more trade could be facilitated. Otherwise, it's logistically, we have to go through the Suez and all sorts of issues. But the desire is very much there, and we both support each other in all our core problems. Pakistan supports Turkey blindly, and Turkey supports Pakistan blindly, and we have no strategic misunderstandings on any score. And we look forward one day to a time when Turkey and Pakistan can cooperate in the Middle East in a constructive way. It's just that we don't want to do it. It's that some of our Arab friends have certain reservations, and I hope this misunderstood. May I now invite President of ORSAM to make some additional remarks that he wishes to say.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to appreciate comments, and especially want to thank Omar Karim for mediating this meeting. Also, very valuable remarks about Gulf relations with Pakistan and Turkey. I want to mention on the both academic field that as universities, I am teaching at the Istanbul University. Also, I have very good connection. The connections as center also personally with academics in Turkey. And we know Pakistan is very strong on the medical field as well as Turkey. And we can cooperate on that. IT is another dimension. Technology, I know many, even some Pakistanis now began to serve in Turkish universities. I hear them. I know a lot of university rectors, presidents also. We can mediate as ORSAM or academician. We can mediate with MOUs, with other cooperation, other maybe technical events, even discussing certain issues. I think we need to, in English they say eye to eye. We can do or become eye to eye in almost all fields. That is, I think needed now. I see a gap between the two sides, even though with love, the couples don't know each other very much. So need more affinity, more deep knowledge about each other. Several technical university rectors in Ankara, Istanbul, and other cities like Konya, and I are eager. We know the interest is there, but we need to implement these, activate the tensions. Media cooperation is very serious. I think, outsiders or evil intended sides, I know there is a big effort to de-justify or degrade Turkey's image, to delegitimize Turkey's rise. We are glad that Turkey can help other brothers and sisters in around the world, but we cannot do this alone. We need the good help from Pakistan. Not everything needs money, and especially, for example, the Gulf, the Persian Gulf or Arabian Gulf. In Turkish, we say Basra Gulf as a neutral term, is very critical. For example, we need to discuss even more in detail. For example, the stability of Iraq can serve as a bridge by the sea and land, like in the old days, it was like that, between Pakistan and Turkey, and Iraq is the bridge by the Gulf. So along with the Gulf security, I think the stability and other betterment of Iraq is key for all of us. There are other issues maybe we think of. The initial thought was to discuss for this meeting also to discuss tourism, the tourism potential. We know there are more tourism potential, and that can help. Dr. Turan, he knows a lot about Pakistan. He sometimes tweets about it, and very good potential for Pakistan to attract tourists from Turkey and vice versa. So we have a good potential. All these, we are not as more touristic, but the tourism department in one university or sector people can come together and decide what is potentials, what is challenges, etc. And the many things can be done on this. And we know Turkey also invests outside only to try to attract, but Turkey is now the amount is like $4 billion, the Turkish investment outside, and some countries are very eager to attract this, and I think Pakistan has also a good potential to attract some of the Turkish investment outside and can help a lot. So these are my topics, and I personally also feel strongly about Pakistan and the well-being. We know, Americans promised intervention in Afghanistan, and then this become a burden on Pakistan, etc. And similar promises are being made in the Arab world now for some Arab countries. But we know, if we don't cooperate, the people of the region, if they don't cooperate, America or China or Russia or others, European Union, they are not gonna help us particularly. We can cooperate with them, but we have to cure our problems ourselves. We have to, join hands in this regard. And I think there is a big potential in all levels, especially the academic cooperation. Thank you again for this good meeting and for the good contribution as the organizer, our partner organizer also.
Thank you, President Usal. You made some very useful points and suggestions. I think we will certainly pass these on to the authorities in Pakistan that, there are opportunities and that have to be capitalized on. I think the fundamental point in this whole seminar is that how Pakistan and Turkey can not only further improve their very brotherly and friendly relationship. We need to put more meat into it, particularly economic cooperation. And I think economic cooperation is fundamental to any relationship. It's a strong underpinning. So I think we very much realize that there is a great potential for Pakistan to improve relations with Turkey, and through Turkey with even Europe and other countries in the region. But there are other complicating factors also, President. We have a rather difficult relationship with the United States. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, and please do correct me, I think Turkey also has some difficulties occasionally with the United States, although you are a member of NATO and you have bilateral relations and so on and so forth. Sometimes these big powers are also interfering in our regions. They interfere massively in South Asia. They interfere in the Middle East. In fact, they are dominating in the Middle East. A lot of people think that they are disassociating and going away from the Middle East, but they're not really going. But they're also creating a new situation in the Middle East. I think Israel is being given a much greater role now, it seems, in the context of their relationship with some of the Arab countries. That gives Israel some strategic advantages and their complicated relationship with Iran. So I thank you for your comments. I will now invite Vice Admiral Wasim Akram, retired. He's a former ambassador of Pakistan to Nepal. He's expressed his wish to make some comments.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Öncelikle Türk kardeşlerimize bu webinarda hoş geldiniz diyorum. Bu etkileşimden çok şey öğrendim. Hoş geldiniz hocam. Sir, in my opinion,
hoş bulduk, Büyükelçi. Hoş bulduk. Turkish. Thank you.
In my opinion, sir, till the time Israel changes its behavior and stop acting as a villain, there will be no normalization and peace in the Gulf region. From killing of General Qasem Soleimani, attacking of Iranian nuclear sites, killing of Iranian nuclear scientists. Israel has provoked Iran on numerous occasions. Similarly, by conducting false flag operations, Israel is dividing the Gulf region into Shia-Sunni blocs. While Trump left the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Biden administration appears to be in no hurry to revive this JCPOA. Sir, in my humble opinion, till the time this Shia-Sunni divide is bridged and sanctions on Iran are lifted, there could be no durable peace in the region. You can only engage people while they are on the same platform. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Admiral Saab, for your remarks. Very useful, very constructive. I now invite Mr. Ali Shah. He's the head of the research at NIPES, which is the think tank that is organizing this particular webinar. And Dr. Ali is a very serious research worker. He's recently come out with a book, and it's something that it's a book worth reading. And he has worked very hard. His research has been very solid. So Ali, please make your comments.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind introduction. I think a lot of value has already been added. I would just like to mention a core area of potential collaboration and cooperation between Pakistan and Turkey. Although on the face of it, it seems not as strategic as geopolitics and diplomacy, yet it is a non-strategic way of deepening long-term cooperation between Pakistan and Turkey. And that area is that of intense science diplomacy and S&T cooperation between Turkey and Pakistan. And we have to look at this cooperation in the context of the need for both countries to advance beyond their respective economic positions, which they are currently occupying. Turkey would need to become very soon a nominal $1 trillion GDP economy. Similarly, Pakistan in the next decade or so hopefully would need to double its GDP from its current value. So for both Pakistan to avoid the low growth trap and for Turkey to avoid the middle income trap, I think S&T cooperation focused on the mutual development of what in today's world are called new industrial clusters, like science and technology parks, free zones, SEZ zones, special technology zones, and other forms of special S&T based experimental enclosures is very important. And this form of cooperation, I think, obviates and surmounts the need for geographic contiguity between the two countries. Thank you very much, sir.
I now invite Dr. Moyadedid to make his comments, please.
Thank you very much. First of all, sir, my deep appreciation for this event, very rich in quality and very well required. They say that, love endures only when lovers love many things together and not merely each other. This saying or whatever, is very much applicable to the relationship between Turkey and Pakistan. Economics, culture, and people-to-people contact in the modern days are the essence of the relationship between the countries. Whereas there is no doubt, actually, the mutual love is embedded into the DNAs of both countries. So that is there. But if we want to sustain it for our mutual benefit, then we have to cooperate in meaningful ways. Otherwise, what happens is that there will be nothing substantial, or very little that will be substantial between the relationship of the two countries. India is, gaining grounds because of its economic power, diplomatic power, and cultural power in Turkey. Not to kind of belittle in any way the supreme relationship that exists between the two countries, but I'm talking about the dynamics of the relationship and the space that is available to us in the long term inside Turkey, and also the space of Turkish brotherhood inside Pakistan. If we wanted to continue and to grow, I think we have to cooperate in meaningful ways, S&T, in other things that we can. And similarly, we look inside Turkey that what is it that we can, benefit from there. Just, I'm sure the August House knows that the trade between Turkey and India, they are aiming at something like $10 billion. And in 2023, they are, aiming to a whooping figure of $20 billion. And in 2019, the figure is quite close to $10 billion between the two countries. And the trade balance is in favor of India because Turkey is importing lots of things, about $7 billion, $6 to $7 billion per annum from India. We can look at those areas. And I'm sure that in Turkey, the willingness that whatever they import from India, if in case we can do that to offer those things or build those capabilities, I rest assured that the willingness on their part to substitute Pakistan instead of India is always will be very much there. And also their cooperation in science and technology, in space, between India and Turkey. We need to build our prowess in these things. And so there was this nano satellite that was built by one of the Turkish universities, and that was put into the orbit by Indian systems in 2009 and all that. What I'm trying to say is, as the President ORSAM also pointed out, that there is a huge potential in the IT and other things between the universities and academia and other things. And I wish that we could also look at this kind of a cooperation between our two countries. Thank you, sir. Thank you indeed.
Before I invite Dr. Ashfaq Ahmed Khan, who's the head of this institute that is organizing this webinar, I would like to invite my Turkish friends, brothers, if they have any question in mind that you need to ask our Pakistani participants. If there is any particular question or any issue that you want us to focus on, I think we'd be very happy to do that. Dr. Sab? Well, I now invite Dr. Ashfaq Ahmed Khan. He's an outstanding economist of Pakistan. He has served in the government in very important positions. He's now the head of the dean of the institute and the business school, and is a very, shall we say, brave and economist who does not mince his words. I think his comments on on our cooperation, his comments on the region, and of course Pakistan's own economy. They are treated with great respect. So I now ask Dr. Ashfaq to.
Good afternoon, Turkey, and good afternoon, Pakistan. My name is Ismail Sara. I'm an assistant professor of international relations, and I'm a senior fellow at ORSAM. I focus on Iranian foreign policy. We are meeting today to discuss the current state of relations between Pakistan, Turkey, and Gulf states. But Pakistan into an interesting position between Iran and Saudi Arabia. As you know, Iran and Saudi Arabia are geostrategic competitors, not only in the Middle East, but increasingly of region South Asia. Is certainly in that area, Afghanistan and Pakistan. For 7 decades, Iranian-Pakistani relations have mixed elements of both competitions and cooperation. Tensions arise from the bilateral disputes, rivalry for regional influence, different postures toward the United States, or the sectarian divide between majority Sunni Pakistan and Shia Iran. But the two states have also cooperated in fields that are of strategic interest to the United States, including military assistance, nuclear proliferation, and support for militants that pose a threat to U.S. interest in West Asia. The new Pakistani government, led by Prime Minister Imran Khan, confronted economic challenges. The government sought additional sources of financial assistance from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates, among others. Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman visited Pakistan to finalize agreement on new projects in the energy sector and other areas. $20 billion Saudi investment in Pakistan's economy to match the scale of China, Islamabad's principal ally. Pakistani military cooperation with Saudi Arabia has also remained strong. Actually, the depending relationship between Pakistan and the Gulf states comes at a period of high tension between Saudi Arabia and Iran. I want to ask Mr. Ambassador, as speaker, how will Pakistan navigate the Saudi Arabia-Iran rivalry on Pakistan? Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for asking this very delicate question. It's we want to help, but while sometimes out of courtesy, both sides express their desire that Pakistan should mediate. But when it actually comes to it, we don't really mediate because it's a very complicated thing. We try and facilitate, but so far I don't think we have really made any significant contribution towards this complicated strategic adversarial relationship between Turkey, between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The world is divided on this issue, and sometimes big powers also interfere in this. Many aspects of Pakistan-Iran relations that we want to develop are sometimes a victim of American pressures. So, sanctions and so on and so forth. But by and large, you mediate between parties only if you are genuinely invited and they genuinely want the mediation to take place. But if it is perfunctory and if it's more, out of diplomatic politeness, they normally doesn't make much sense. Actually, Pakistan, I mean, I've been foreign secretary. I've had the opportunity of dealing with some of these issues. We try not to burn our fingers because I think that is in the best interest of Pakistan. Iran is a neighbor of Pakistan. We have actually special relationship with them. With Saudi Arabia, we also have very special relationship, a long-standing relationship. Apart from the fact that Mecca and Medina are there. There are very. I think my friend from Rusi had referred to some flagging of the military relationship between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. That's not really happening that way. But maybe the Saudis are now feeling more comfortable with themselves. And maybe they're feeling more comfortable with the United States. I think they were very comfortable with Trump, but I'm not so sure about Biden. And they are maybe also a little more comfortable with Israel. So maybe these factors are in play, but by and large, Pakistan is still got a significant presence of our military forces there to assist. But we don't want to get involved. I think this point has been made very clear to Saudi Arabia that we do not want to get into a situation where Saudi Arabia is in conflict with one of the Arab neighbors. But and I think very clearly that policy was laid down in the context of Yemen. Now, as you know, the Americans have also given very strong indication that they want this Yemeni war to end. It's a huge humanitarian crisis. My daughter deals with it. I can tell you, it's unbelievable what's happening in that country. So I think there is need for an overall improvement of the situation in the Middle East, the Gulf, and of course, relationship between Pakistan. I now invite Dr. To make his Ambassador Hafiz who was an earlier, he spoke earlier. He'd like to make a few comments.
Sir, I just want to flag one or two things very briefly. In fact, part of it you have already said. The participant from Rusi had said that, and you alluded to that Pak Saudi Arabia defense cooperation was going down. That is partly true, and that's bound to happen because number one, our Gulf brothers are coming up. They have learned a lot. And secondly, as I said earlier, the nature of war is changing. The future wars will no longer be with long-range guns and tanks. They will be wars by other means. So that is one. And secondly, what I want to, but again, in the context of Saudi Arabia, and you've said it already, we have our people over there. And this is one thing that I've said it, I used to say there repeatedly, that Pakistan is one of the few countries that has no political agenda in the Gulf and in Saudi Arabia. We are 100% for cooperation with the friends. We want their welfare. We want their stability. So another thing that I want to say is that in this hybrid war, it is the implosion from within that is sometimes instigated by the enemy, here in Pakistan as well as in Saudi Arabia. So in that kind of a situation, when the enemy tries to divide the society against maybe the ruling family or trying to put them against each other, it is Pakistan that would be wholeheartedly with Saudi Arabia. Secondly, one thing that is going to further strengthen the Pakistan's relationship with the Gulf countries is CPAC. See, China imports 4 million barrels of oil every day, and half of it comes from the GCC countries. And that is going to, in near future, when CPAC becomes fully operational, it is going to pass through Pakistan. So that is another factor. And the Chinese products going to the Gulf via Pakistan. Third thing, and the last, is that I see President Biden's remarks about Yemen, about Iran, about the region with a lot of optimism. About Yemen, he said, this war has to end. And he said, we will not support any offensive actions. About Iran, he wants to come back to JCPOA. That may be difficult, that may be problematic, but again, that is a good intention. So these are the things that I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Fees, for making some very useful points and adding to this very constructive debate. I now invite Dr. Shaq Ahmed Khan to make his comments.
Thank you very much. I think this has been a very productive webinar. And from the NIPS point of view, we are highly delighted to hold this joint webinar with ORSAM. And inshallah, we will continue to cooperate and collaborate in future deliberation on issues of mutual interest. As you know, that NUST is a globally ranked university. We rank about 350 in global ranking. And NUST is certainly the #1 university in Pakistan. Through the platform of NIPS, we and ORSAM can also work together in research activities as well. We can have joint product of mutual interest, and our scholars can work together also as a part of future collaboration. Secondly, as it has been discussed, that we have a very strong military to military or security relationship between Pakistan and Turkey, but such a strong relationship is not as yet evident in economics part. So how can we strengthen our economic relationship? Here, I would like to propose a few items, which this is just for your thinking and for future collaboration, that as you know, that Pakistan is part of the Belt and Road Initiative, and we have a China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, we call CPEC, which is a flagship program of China's Belt and Road Initiative. China and Pakistan Economic Corridor is not a bilateral initiative. It has a regional context as well. And in this perspective, China is establishing its economic relations with Iran. And we all know that they have signed some $400 billion worth of investment, which China intends to undertake in Iran, and wants to cement its economic relationship with Iran. We have very strong relationship with China on economic side. And I'm also aware of the fact that China and Turkey has also very strong economic linkages. So I am proposing that we have a RCD already existed in the past, Regional Cooperation and Development RCD between Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey. The time has come to revive that RCD, and CPEC can be integrated into through RCD. China, Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey can have a very strong economic bond or economic linkages, which will serve the economic interest of all the four countries. Later on, maybe some other countries can also join. So I just wants to throw this to raise this issue to our friend in ORSAM, that is there any thinking on your side to have a strong cooperation, economic cooperation between China, Iran, Pakistan, and Turkey? 2-3 years ago, I think, I made a presentation in Istanbul, and I presented my paper exactly on this topic. And our Turkish friend, they said that yes, they are also thinking in that line. So I don't know whether the ORSAM has some work in making to undertake such type of thing. This will have a great economic linkages and cooperation between the four countries. So I leave it to you, Mr. President, on think about this. And if that is the case, then NIPS and ORSAM can undertake projects and work together. So thank you very much, sir, from my side.
Thank you, Dr. Ishfaq, for your very valuable comments on the prospects of economic cooperation between China and Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey. Let me just, I referred to this RCD summit of 1976, and two leaders of Pakistan and Turkey were in complete agreement on this issue. But it was the Shah of Iran who was extremely reluctant. In fact, the point that Pakistan had made at that time was that we must, the three countries must industrialize by very close cooperation. In fact, even in military cooperation, even in military production of military equipment. Mr. Bhutto, I recall, made this proposal. And in fact, the summit at the end was not entirely pleasant. They disagreed thoroughly because the Shah of Iran was not very keen because he had his ideas of his own, and he thought that our dependence on the United States was critical. So I'm just saying that when it comes to cooperation of this nature, sometimes these big powers do interfere and create problems for cooperation. May I now invite Mr. Gokham from ORSAM to make his comment?
Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Mr. I would like to state that the Gulf reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and mainly Qatar, and also it included the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, maybe, and it is an important step. It has been perceived as an important and decisive step by Pakistan also and Turkey for a more stable and wider region. And Turkey and Pakistan in this respect are cooperating and can cooperate more to have a stronger relations with each other and also with their Gulf partners. And also I would like to state a brief point on I would like to state that there are many Pakistanis and Turks who have been living and working in the Gulf. It is another aspect that is the normalization, reconciliation, and the consensus in the Gulf, the new consensus in the Gulf. I can say that there could be more cooperation in our brotherly people who are living in the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. I also want to underline that these panels and seminars and organized by NIPS and ORSAM will help us craft a more stable and robust roadmaps and guidelines to further this and to furtherance of these issues. Thank you, everyone.
I think we've had a very useful discussion, and we all agree on 3 or 4 very critical points. One, of course, is Pakistan-Turkey relations, which I've always said were brotherly and friendly and flawless in most ways. But there is huge prospect, huge scope for further expansion of this relationship. Secondly, of course, we can think in terms of greater regional cooperation, which includes Iran. And I hope one day we can organize a webinar with our Iranian friends and our Turkish friends and see how we can move forward on some of the ideas that were mentioned by him. Thirdly, of course, we very much want to see peace and stability in the Middle East, peace and stability in the Gulf, because as it was mentioned earlier by Ambassador Fiz, it has great impact on Pakistan. 5 million Pakistanis' livelihood depends on them. 5 million means really several million. If you count families, so it's a great contribution, and we certainly don't want to lose that. But then, it's also a question of countries' values and dignity and honor. And we certainly are not a country that wants to be pushed around by anybody. We value our respect, our dignity. And I think one very fundamental point is important here. A country which is not economically sound and economically stable and is not developing and progressing, I'm afraid, compromises its independence and sovereignty. When you have to go to other countries to ask for money to support the economy, then that's not a very not a very palatable approach. Then the country that gives you economic assistance is in a position to pressurize you and manipulate you. And we've had that terrible experience with the United States. I want to emphasize that. When some of our friends try and tell us that the Chinese are pushing you into this CPAC, which is really eventually going to be an economic burden, I just want to underline that this is nonsense. Only recently, a very interesting article has come out from the think tank, the Atlantic think tank, and they've actually questioned all this. about this debt trap that the Chinese are laying. This is not true. And I tell you, I've been ambassador to China myself, and I've dealt with China for God knows from the time of Chairman Mao. I can tell you of not one occasion when the Chinese arm twisted Pakistan on any of the issues. So I think this is a very important factor. So lastly, we certainly, Turkey and Pakistan can also contribute if we are asked. We don't want to impose. We don't want to be overzealous in our approach to offer our services to our friends in the Middle East and in the Gulf, particularly in regard to either mediating or facilitating better understanding among them. We wish our Arab brothers well, and it's such a pleasure to have exchanged these views with our Turkish brothers. I hope we can do more of this in the future. President Usal, thank you very much. Yeah, I certainly, on my part, I've made my conclusion, but I certainly want to request Dr. Osal if you would like to make any additional points as concluding remarks. Thank you. Thank you, sir. May I now invite the rector of Nast University, General Javed Mahmood Bukhari, to make his concluding remarks. We look forward to that, sir.
Sir, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me, sir.
I can hear you.
All right. Extremely grateful. Personally, I'm very grateful to all the participants. We stand much wiser on some very critical issues to both Turkey and Pakistan. The discussion was very thought-provoking. I genuinely wish to extend my gratitude to Excellency Ambassador Coker for conducting the webinar so well. We are very grateful to you, sir. At NIPS, we owe you our gratitude for so many things that you do to us, especially for conducting this seminar so well. My compliments to all the participants once again. Thank you very much indeed.
Dr. Osal and my other Turkish brothers, our friend from Rusi, for this wonderful exchange. And as I said in one of my remarks, that we should repeat this. Please cooperate with NIPS, which is one of our best think tanks, and perhaps when things normalize, when we are rid of COVID-19, I hope we can not only have webinars, but we can also visit each other, the institutes, and maybe we can think in terms of exchange of scholars, and we can think in terms of coming up with common publication. So I think this is something which is a good start, and I thank you, sir. It's my great pleasure that I've had the privilege of chairing this particular session. Khuda Hafiz, and please stay safe. And I wish you all good health, happiness, and prosperity. And especially to Turkey and Pakistan. I don't want to emphasize only the love aspect, but we are really sincere friends. And I don't think you can find an example of this nature in the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gule gule, hoşça kal.
Thank you. Ma salama. See you later.
Ma salama. Görüşmek üzere. İyi günler.
Görüşmek üzere.
See you later next events.